Jimmy Uso had some even competition going up against The Miz because, Jimmy Uso is not really that great of a wrestler. He has the super kick and the splash, and those are his really like his only two moves. And he's he's just not the best in the ring. Jay Uso does have, some form of talent, but they made it that way, with the whole main event thing and all that. But, Jay Uso is starting to kind of fall back. He's slipping up on Raw, like literally slipping up. He was gonna deliver the spear and then slipped, and then Gunther was able to take advantage. Speaking of, Jimmy Uso is going to be going up against Gunther on Monday, so we'll see what happens with that. But Jey Uso versus Gunther at WrestleMania, Jay's probably going to get that title, I'm sure. But remember, I said before, Brock Lesnar should return afterwards. But we will see. We will see. But in the end, Jimmy Uso was able to hit a splash um, on the Miz and get the win. Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre in a one-on-one match. And I feel like they could have did better about bringing up the history of Orton and Drew because Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre might be one of the greatest feuds in recent history of WWE. And I feel like they could have, really done better with that. I feel like they could have really put the history on the table. But they didn't. But in the end, Randy Orton was priming for the RKO and Kevin Owens walked out there. That was enough of a distraction for Randy Orton that when he turned around, he got hit with a Claymore by Drew, which gave Drew McIntyre the win. Then Kevin Owens started walking around the ring to Randy Orton, and then he attacked Randy Orton, and he was going to try to deliver the pile driver again. But Randy Orton reversed it, and you know how Randy Orton does that move where he sweeps the person on the announce table. He sweeps them up. He knocks them over by grabbing their foot. He knocked them on the announce table. KO rolled off, and KO was looking in position for the punt kick. Randy Orton backed up, and he was getting ready to try to deliver the punt kick to Randy Orton. But I mean, I had a funny feeling they were not going to, let us see that yet. That'll probably happen at WrestleMania. And that's exactly what happened. KO jumped the barricade just before the punt, and that was pretty much that. Drew McIntyre might have got lucky with that win against Randy Orton, but that was not the end of Drew McIntyre's night because he got attacked by Damian Priest as he was leaving the building. And then they started brawling towards this car, and then Damian Priest started slamming Drew McIntyre's head onto the top of the car, and then this guy walked out of the car, and Damian Priest choke slammed him. And then after that, they continued their brawl, and they started climbing over the top of the car, and I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be dangerous. And Drew McIntyre got choke slammed. Damian Priest grabbed Drew's neck. He stood up and choke slammed Drew McIntyre into the windshield, broken glass and all. Drew McIntyre was rolling around in pain. He was talking about glasses in his eye, like glass flew in his eye. And um, then CM Punk actually walked past and saw Drew McIntyre laying there with a big smile on his face and started walking to the arena because tonight's the big contract signing. But yeah, Drew McIntyre slammed right into a car. Okay, the contract signing. CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns walked out there. He had a few words. He was eventually interrupted by Seth Rollins. And then he came out there and he had a few words and he brought up, the Shield and he talked about that a little bit. And then lastly, CM Punk came out there. And the other two signed the contract. CM Punk has not signed yet. And he was shuffling through the papers. And Roman Reigns felt like it was taking him too long to shuffle through the papers. And Paul Heyman, he said that he knows CM Punk is looking for something in particular. And that's that he's going to be able to main event WrestleMania. Because apparently he's never main evented WrestleMania. And I never knew that, but I guess he never has main evented WrestleMania. So that's in the papers. CM Punk was thanking everybody for it. Seth Rollins was playing the character like he was starting to go crazy. Roman Reigns was getting upset. And then Roman Reigns said that CM Punk needs to acknowledge him and CM Punk actually did. He actually did acknowledge Roman Reigns, and he threw in the fact that Roman Reigns used to call himself the big dog. That was kind of funny. Uh, and then at the end, he stood up. Punk stood up and he said, "But getting the main event in WrestleMania was not the favor that I'm owed." And then he walked out because again, the one favor, because the fact that he helped the Bloodline at War Games, Punk gets one favor in return. And then again, it just leaves that blank space, and for the end of the show, which was just really really cool, man. It was a really cool way that they wrote this. But I guess this video's over. Peace out, peeps.